Hey Jake, I just wanted to give you another quick video. Um, and this one will be interesting to practice. Um, what I wanted to follow up on with you is it's almost like a little trick that you can use when you are feeling like an outsider, or you're meeting a new group of people, or you just don't feel like anybody is really getting you right now. And I know we talked in the last video about what happens when you sit by yourself at lunch, okay? So you're going to run into that situation all the time. Like, you walk into a classroom, everybody's already made friends or they have their own cliques, and you don't really have a clique, and you're like, well, what do I do? You kind of stand there. I've been in that position a million times. You kind of stand there awkwardly. You go sit down. You realize that you're like one of the only people who doesn't have like a partner or doesn't have a group of friends, right? It's a terrible feeling, okay? So our first instinct of when that happens is to feel terrible, and you project that, right? You kind of get small, and you're sitting at your desk and you're kind of sad, and more people are laughing over here and people are joking over there, and you're like, wow, what's wrong with me? Nobody's hanging out with me, okay? And that's a normal reaction. Everybody has that reaction. I've had that reaction many times, even as an adult. I start work, at a new place. This last job I had, everybody knew each other. The guy I was replacing had been there 6 years. Everybody loved him, and I walk in and I'm just like some dude, right? So what I've noticed is that you can turn that around with a few simple things. And what you basically have to do is act like, and again, you might not feel like this at first, but remember, your brain and your spirit changes the universe, and your body and your feelings follow, okay? And what I mean by that is, if you feel that way and you get small and you get sad, it's going to snowball, right? And people are going to look at you over there, and they're going to be like, oh, look at that sad person who doesn't have any friends, right? Because you're projecting that. You're projecting that you don't have any friends. But what I noticed as I got older, and I, you guys have a cell phone now. I used to have a sketchbook or a book. But if I would come into a new situation, like a lunchroom or like recess or like, company lunch or something like that, and I would act as though it was okay, it was perfectly fine with me that I was by myself in my own place, and had that confidence, and projected that I would walk in and I would be nice. You're not standoffish to anybody. You're like, hey, everybody's over with their groups. You're like, hey, how's it going? And then you sit down, and instead of being like this and being all sad about it, you're like this. You're like, and I would sit down and have my book. I'd be eating my lunch and I'd be reading, and my shoulders were back, my head was up. I'd be smiling. If somebody said hi, I'd be smiling. But my projection was, hey, you know what? I'm here to make friends. If you guys aren't ready to make friends, that's cool. I'm not going to chase you down. I also don't want you to pity me. I'm okay within myself. And if you notice, Jake, a lot of people are so terrified of being by themselves and working on themselves and having that introspection. How am I going to make myself better every day? What am I interested in? Who am I? These are questions that have to be answered. And many times people use company and a circle of friends as a distraction. And what I do is, I really need my alone time. I've grown into that. I need my time. And so whenever I'm faced with that situation, I kind of look at this as like, hey, what am I trying to work on today? What's something that I wanted to try drawing? What's a book that I wanted to read? What's a thing? And I get into myself and loving myself and feeling good about myself. And what happens is, this is the magic part, Jake. What happens is once you start to feel that way and project that, hey, I love to hang out with people, but if I don't, that's okay. I'm not going to panic. I'm not going to feel bad about myself. I'm just going to, what happens, Jake? 99 times out of 100, somebody sits down with you Hey, what are you working on? What are you drawing? What's that book you're reading? What are you having for lunch? And every single time you're sitting, and when you're walking through the hallway, again, you're projecting, I'm okay. I'm Jake. You guys got your own group of friends. That's cool. I'm my own best friend, and that energy is attractive to people, right? Because it shows confidence, leadership, and strength. And I know it's hard to do. Believe me, when I first got to Hendricken, when I first got to high school, it was an all-boys Catholic school. I started hanging out with the only people who would hang out with me. I was so lost. And they were assholes. And the reason they hung out with me is because they liked to make fun of me. And so I did that for a couple of weeks because I just didn't know a soul in that school. And then I was like, you know what? I don't like these guys. I'm just going to do my own thing. I'm just going to go hang out. And when I went to the lunchroom, I would bring my sketchbook. And that's where I met these guys. I would draw comics. I was drawing the Grape Heads. And I met all these comic geeks that became my lifelong friends. But I wouldn't have met them if I had stayed with a circle of friends that didn't work for me just because I wanted to sit with people. I had to get in myself and feel good about myself and feel confident in myself and project that, And so that's what I want you to try is when you get that panic. I used to get that panic. Like, I don't belong. Everybody here belongs. I don't belong. I took that panic. I just throw it out. And I was like, you know what? That's okay. Now it's important to have a thing. So you're not just sitting there like, because then you're like a weirdo, you're just like, but if you have a thing that you're working on, it's like, okay, I start drawing, I have my book, or you've got your phone, you can do that. And then you're sitting up straight and you're like, okay, whatever is, those people will come into my life that are attracted to this energy that I have. Okay. And so we can talk more about this if this is confusing, but I'm telling you, it works every time. It worked as an adult for me. So, all right, I'll talk to you soon. I love you. Bye.